Another landscape, another reflective landscape with a lake and distant trees and a setting sun or maybe a rising sun. And this time I used 3 colors. I used orange and black and green. Yesterday, the card I did yesterday, I only used orange and black. Today, orange, black, and I added some green. Plus, looks like I was more generous with the orange to create some of those orange trees in the background. Anyway, I wanted to show you how I painted this. It's a relatively easy one to paint, and the idea is to have fun, and I show you what I paint. You show me what you paint. Put it on the Poppa Paints Facebook group. Why do my shirts do this? My shirts all kind of flop around. But anyway, I want to show you how I painted this, and also in this video, I'm telling you about an artist who recently passed away named Richard Pettibone, Pettibone. And Richard Pettibone died on August 19th. He was 86 years old, and he was famous for doing small versions of famous art, like famous art from contemporary artists. Andy Warhol comes to mind, but I know he did other artists as well, and I'll read something from an article I had online about Mr. Pettibone. But there is a lot of talk sometimes about painting other paintings, people who do paintings of already established paintings. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen Starry, Starry Night at an art show that somebody else painted. And of course, they put their name on it, but they also acknowledge that it's really from Van Gogh or Monet or Manet or Rembrandt or whoever else they're copying. To me, this is me personally, I'd rather be influenced by a style than to actually try to copy somebody else's work. But that's me. That's just the way I feel. If you're watching Bob Ross, do you paint the exact same landscape as Bob Ross? Some people do. And they're very happy with those paintings. They hang on their walls, and they are beautiful. Other people look at Bob Ross and say, oh, that's how he does trees. Let me do some trees using that technique, and let me maybe adjust it a little bit and make it my own technique, which usually happens naturally. It doesn't usually happen like in a preconceived way. It just happens. So anyway, those are some of the things we talk about on today's video. And while you're listening to whatever I have to jibber jabber about, I'll show you how I painted today's card, which is gonna go to the church. Yes, we have an art auction at the end of November. It's getting close. And that art auction will raise money for people in our community who are in need. And I let them decide who those people are. All I'm doing is creating art. I think I have over 100 cards right now that I can donate to the art auction, to the church. So I'm kind of excited about that. All right, let me turn this off and turn on the video. And thank you for watching. And thank you for the kind, so sweet comments, and keep posting on Facebook, on the Facebook group. By the way, I do plan on doing another video where I look at the paintings and the artwork on the Facebook group, and I think that ought to be fun. Maybe I'll make that every month. I'll do one of those, because you guys are posting so much beautiful, beautiful work. All right, let me show you how I painted that right now. Okay, good morning again. Let's start this one. This is another similar study to the one I did yesterday. Yesterday I used 2 colors. I used orange and black. And I'm going to sort of do that again today, but I'm going to add, I think I'm going to try to add a little bit of green to it. So let's start out with the orange. I like the idea of an orange sky. So let me start with the bottom of the sky where the trees will be. I want it to be like 2/3 of the way down. So I'll just start there. And what I want to do is I want to make it more and more rich as we get to the top, but I want to keep an area right about there for the sun. So it's going to be darker orange everywhere except for there. And that'll be where it brightens up in the sky. So then let's just take it here. Just put that darker orange here close to the bottom, and we'll bring it up as we get to the top. So, hey, have you guys ever heard of Richard Pettibone? Does that name ring a bell for you? Richard Pettibone was an artist who recently passed away. And he was famous for painting miniature versions of famous works of art. I think famous works of art, probably mostly contemporary, although I'm not really familiar with everything he did, but he did a lot of paintings of Andy Warhol's paintings, and he did them small. So he did small versions of Andy Warhol's paintings, and he became famous for that. That was his claim to fame, was doing those small paintings, and he did them. And he kind of had a reputation for being somebody who made commentary about art and commentary about the value of art. And so I have some information I'm going to read to you from the internet that I looked him up after I heard that he passed away. I thought I would share that news with you if you hadn't heard that he passed away, or if you hadn't heard about him at all. I never met him, but I went to, this is years ago, I used to play music in bars and colleges, and I think I've shared that with you quite a few times actually. But one of the places I played when I was beginning to play music for a living, and I say that loosely because I made money, but I think I spent more money traveling than I did making money. But anyway, I played in West Palm Beach here in Florida for a while. I was down there for a few months, and I played lounges mostly, and I was living in hotels, and I would do my laundry at a laundromat, of course. And next door to one of the laundromats that I went to in West Palm Beach was an art gallery, and they sold replicas of famous paintings. I don't think it was Richard Pettibone. I really don't. I don't know who it was, or maybe there was more than one artist. But I was fascinated by it because it just seemed, it seemed like they were copying them. Well, they were copying them. But I guess what I'm getting at is it seemed like they were making money off of somebody else's work. And you gotta keep that circle right there, same circle. And at that time, I just felt like it was a ripoff. I didn't think there was any reason to be celebrating copies like that. I have since changed my mind, because I think as long as you know that somebody has copied Rembrandt or Monet or Van Gogh, I mean, it's not something I want to do. It's really not something I feel like would be something I want to do. I mean, I'm okay with using reference photos like I'm doing right now. I'm using a reference photo for this, and in a couple of weeks I'll be up in Gatlinburg, and I'm going to take photos that I would love to use as I plan on using as reference photos and I plan on sharing them so that you guys can use them as reference photos. And I've done that before, where I share art photographs as reference photos. But when people paint Monet, if you go to an art class, quite often they will teach you how to paint like the old masters. Even if you're watching videos like of Bob Ross, and you're trying to paint a painting like Bob Ross, or of any of them. I feel like there was another one I wanted to mention. But anyway, if you're taking an art class and you're learning how to paint like Van Gogh, then painting of Van Gogh seems to be a great way. It's kind of like if you're playing a music, you know, and you want to learn how to play or sing like Elvis or Streisand or something like that. If you want to learn how to sing like them, I guess you imitate them first. I know from the world of music that, contrary to what TV shows like The Voice will show, music companies, record companies, and again, I'm old, so I'm probably talking old school, but the one thing they didn't want was to have somebody who sounded like somebody else. And I guess maybe that's where my feeling about art comes from. That to paint like somebody else is kind of like, what's the point, you know? Develop your own style. And I still feel that way. I still feel like we should all develop our own styles. And at the art shows that Robin and I attend, quite frequently I will see Starry Starry Night, the painting by Van Gogh, and the artist who painted it is standing there, and that artist copied Starry Starry Night. Just did. So I sometimes how do you guys feel about that? Huh? So let me tell you about Richard Pettibone. Let me get back on topic. I have some talking points here. He was a painter. Here's an article written by Alex Greenberger that appeared on my phone on the internet on the 13th, and today's only the 17th, so it's a rather new article. He says, Richard Pettibone, a painter whose enigmatic work involved copyright-famed contemporary artworks and then exhibiting these smaller-scale lookalikes, died on August 19th at the age of 86. So he just died last month. It says here, during the 1960s, before the heyday of appropriation art, 2 decades later, so that's what you call it when you copy somebody's art, appropriation art. Richard Pettibone was making replicas of paintings by Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Frank Stella, and others. There was another artist famous for duplicating well-known pieces named Sturtevant, but he produced them the same size, but Pettibone made them small versions. What is it here? The work was only partially intended as a parody. And then he said, here's a quote from him. He says, Stella thinks I'm mocking him, and he's right. I am mocking him. He made that statement to Art in America. He said, but I also greatly admire him. I have to wonder if he really thinks that a work of art has no meaning, that it's just paint on canvas, and how come his is so much more valuable than mine? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. You know, I heard a story. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, so you can Google it, but I heard a story that Yoko Ono, the wife of John Lennon, that she had an art show. When John Lennon first met her, she had an art show, and she had an apple on display, and she had a price tag of $1 million on the apple. And everybody was talking about that apple because of the $1 million price tag. So John Lennon was intrigued by that. And it was really a play on people's reactions to price more than it was. It was a real apple. It wasn't like a sculpted apple. It was a real apple. And she put $1 million on it. And I guess she was trying to make a point that people respond to prices. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I used that theory. I took that story from Yoko Ono, whether that's a true story or not. I used it. Let me tell you how I used it. Robin and I were asked when we were doing the radio show, we were asked if we could help raise money for the Literacy Council. The Literacy Council did work with illiterate adults who never learned how to read. And their mission was to help adults who didn't know how to read learn how to read at no cost to them. And so we were helping raise money for that organization. And, I learned a lot from that organization, by the way. This is a side conversation, but the idea that there are people who don't know how to read, there's so many reasons why somebody may be an adult without the ability to read. One of those reasons might be that they just were so poor, they lived in such a poor condition when they were kids, that schooling was just not something that happened for them. And it's as simple as that sometimes. Other times it's not that they can't read, but they can't read in English. So let's say they learned Spanish or Russian or German or whatever, and they came to America, and they could read their language, but they couldn't read English. They could speak English, but they couldn't read it. So there were those people also. And so the work that the Literacy Council did was pretty impressive. And Robin and I interviewed the folks from the Literacy Council quite a few times on the air. And there was one time where they had a contest to see who in the town could raise the most money, and the person who raised the most money would have the privilege, the prize of being able to kiss a horse. We live in a horse community, so there's a lot of famous horses here. So you get to kiss a famous horse, or a horse that might become famous. And to be honest with you, I'm so out of touch with that world, even though I live in that town, in this town. But the point is, it was a kiss the horse, okay? So whoever raised the most money got to kiss the horse, and kissing the horse was just the fun part of it. The important part was helping raise money for the Literacy Council so that they could help illiterate adults learn how to read. Okay, so you get the idea. So, of course, Robin and I, being competitive, not with each other, but with the rest of the community, we signed up to help, and we thought what we would do is we would go to different places in our own community, and we would paint plein air landscapes, and then sell them. Okay, and we were using 16 by 20 canvases. We were using oil paint, and that's what we did. So we went to. I had a dog at that time. So I wanted to take the dog with me because obviously this is going to be an outing. And if you have an outing, you're outdoors, why not have your dog with you? So I had a dog. Her name was Who, H-U. I called her Who Baby. And so we took Who Baby with us. And we learned that the city parks didn't allow dogs. I think they do now, but they didn't back then. But the state parks did. So Florida state parks all allowed dogs. And that's all I needed to know. So we bought an annual pass, a family annual pass, so that Robin and I could go with one pass to all the state parks in Florida. That's what we did. That's what we did. And so I think we went to 60 state parks before this whole competition was over. And each park we went, we did a plein air painting. And the plein air paintings were landscapes, of course, as I just mentioned. And so the intent was to sell them. All right, now we were radio personalities, so we did have somewhat of a following, but we weren't raising much money, and nobody was buying the paintings. People were bringing in $5, $10, but the competition had people who had lots of money. And I said to Robin, there's no way we're going to beat the doctors and the attorneys and the people in town. There's no way we're going to be able to beat them unless we do something different. So we tried to think of what to do, and then I thought of that Yoko Ono story. And I said, well, why don't we, I didn't say we'd make our paintings $1 million, by the way, but I said, let's make the paintings $1,000 each. Now, who in their right mind is going to pay $1,000 for our paintings? But I thought it would be a great publicity stunt so that people would talk about it. And I figured if people talked about it, maybe they wouldn't buy a painting, but maybe the word would spread that we were raising money, and they'd bring money into the station, and we could then hand it over to the Literacy Council. So you get the idea, right? So I did. I made the paintings $1,000 each. What do you think about that? And it caught on. I mean, everybody was talking about the paintings. Yoko Ono was right. People are just go nuts about the price tag on paintings or on art. Just tell somebody it's worth a lot of money, whether it is or not. I mean, I guess value is in the eye of the beholder. So anyway, everybody was talking. Everybody in town, I'm telling you, the newspaper, everybody wanted to know about these paintings that were $1,000 each by these two local radio hosts. It's kind of funny when I think about it now. So that's what we did. We put it like that. And so one day I was on the air, and Robin was out in the offices of the radio station. And well, Robin did the show with me, but every once in a while I would do something, and she would go out into the office. But she was out into the office, and somebody came in and wanted to know if he could see her or I. And I was on the air, so he couldn't come in to see me. But Robin was out in the office, and she went to see him. He wanted to buy, listen to this, he wanted to buy 7 paintings. So Robin comes into me after the man has purchased the paintings and left. Robin comes into the little studio where I was doing the show, and she hands me or shows me 70 $100 bills. Is that right? Is that $7,000? 10 $100 bills is 1,000. So 70, right? Am I doing the math right? Anyway, she had this whole load of $100 bills, and her hand is like, whoa. She showed it to me. I said, what is that? I didn't know what it was at that time. And so she said, somebody bought 7 paintings. I said, what? Are you kidding me? So we had then from one donor, we had $7,000 that we could now hand over to the Literacy Council. And I couldn't wait to hand it over, and I was nervous having it. Oh, yeah, we was kind of nervous, like, geez, we can't hold on to this money. I'm afraid I'm going to lose it, or somebody's going to steal it. So we took the money after the show. We drove it over to the Literacy Council. And one of the ladies who worked there who greeted us at the door, and she almost fell over. When we handed her the $7,000, she almost fell over. Well, competition as it is, and by the way, people want their friends to win. So there were people in that organization that weren't really as honest as you would imagine people would be. And so they leaked the word that the 2 radio hosts had raised $7,000. Well, the other competitors in the competition, they didn't want to be outdone. So they had to hurry up and come up with $7,000. And so Robin and I continued. We didn't know this now. I just told you something that we learned after the fact. But Robin and I continued to try to raise money. Not just, we had more than the $7,000. We had little pieces, little donations. People gave $5, $10. My brother visited from California, and he didn't donate money to the cause, but I drove him to the airport one time when he was getting ready to leave. He was going back to Los Angeles. I drove him to the airport, and he wanted to give me money for gas and parking and all that stuff. I said, no, you don't got to give me money. I'm good. Come on, we're brothers. Well, when he got out of the car, and I didn't even realize he did this, but there it was on the seat, $50 bill, a $50 bill. So I said, oh, well, obviously he wants me to have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it toward the contest, the Kiss the Horse thing. And so I had that extra 50, and like I say, and people came in, gave $5, $10. So we had maybe another 1,000. I'm not sure exactly how much we had. Robin might remember how much we had, but so now it comes time for the grand finale. Everybody is gathered at this horse farm, and that's where we're going to kiss the horse. And the ladies who run the organization, they were all excited, and everybody had somebody they were rooting for. Everybody had somebody that they wanted to win. And I am not making this up. Nobody was rooting for us. I really think nobody was rooting for us because we weren't the high rollers in town. We were just, the poor radio host people. we were just those people. We just did a radio show, and trust me, unless your name is Howard Stern or I don't know, somebody famous, I don't know who's famous in radio anymore, but trust me, radio hosts don't usually make a lot of money. And that was us. We didn't make a lot of money. And it's funny how people respect money. So nobody was rooting for us. They were rooting for the lawyers. They were rooting for the doctors. They were rooting for the people that had contributed in years past, because there were a lot of people who gave a lot of money. So I don't want to take away from their contribution to the world and to their community, our community. So when it was all said and done, oh, here's the funny thing too, and Robin will tell you this. This was funny. One of the wives of one of the doctors that is well known in town was one of our competitors. So I saw her on her phone, and so did Robin. And then later on, her husband showed up. Now, we had spoken to her husband on the air, and we said, are you going to be at the Kiss the Horse event? Because we're going to be there. And he said, no, that's something my wife is doing. But then there he was. Right there. I said to Robin, I thought he wasn't going to be here. And she said, I bet she called him up. And said she needed more money. Robin nailed it. Robin knew that somebody leaked, because you're not supposed to know how much the other competitors have raised. So he wrote a check. So let me stop for a second. I want to add some green to this. Just going to add a little bit of green. Dark green. So this is going to be a 3-color picture. Okay. So anyway, let me finish the story now. So it's time for the grand tally, right? So Robin had a handful of change in her pocketbook, and she took that handful of change and she gave it to one of the girls that was adding up the money. Okay? And so they added up the money, and then they had to announce the winners. And guess what? We won by like $3 or $4 and change. That's it. That was how much we won by, just a little bit. We didn't win by much, but we won. And don't ask me why. I don't know why rules are sometimes so unbreakable, but they only allowed one of us to kiss the horse. I guess these horses are precious creatures, and you can't just have two people kissing a horse. Because Robin and I were the only team. Everybody else was like single people that were competing, like the doctor's wife, for example. And so I got to kiss the horse, and I said, I always felt bad about that, because in the publicity pictures later on, it shows me kissing the horse, and I do not look comfortable. I look less than comfortable. So I kissed the horse, and we won by just under $5 or something of that sort. And so there's my story of pricing art. And I may have told you something about this once before. I'm not really sure. But so what I'm doing now is I'm painting these foreground trees. I'm keeping it very watercolor. Isn't that kind of cool how that looks? I kind of like that. So anyway, getting back to Richard Pettibone, Pettibone. So look him up, and you'll see that he made a name for himself painting miniatures of other people's work. I think he even did some sculptures that were copies also. I think so. Yeah. Have you guys ever done sculptures? Do you guys ever work like with clay? I've always wanted to do that. I have a block of clay right here on this desk. Robin gave it to me because I had said to her one time, I think I want to try sculptures. But I really never messed with it. Just a little bit, but it was horrible. It was just not good at all. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just putting these trees and just making them, of course, in the water. I'm using green and orange and black to do these trees. I just thought if I add a little bit of green to the trees, that it might be cool. Might be cool. Did you guys watch the Emmy Awards at all? My favorite part was when Henry Winkler and Ron Howard came out, and they recreated that a miniature scene from the TV show Happy Days that kind of brought them to our... Well, everybody knew Ron Howard, but nobody knew Henry Winkler at that time, right? That was cool. It was a cool show, and it was a cool segment they did on the Emmy Awards. Robin likes to comment on the award shows. She likes to talk about the clothing, especially the clothing that the women wear. And she said they were very classy this time. She says sometimes they're very, like, what's her word? Like not classy, whatever the opposite of classy is. She says sometimes they're just not classy. They show too much skin or whatever. And she said this time they all look pretty classy. So she got the thumbs up from Robin in the clothing department. All right, now the tops of these trees point up, and then the rest of the trees, the limbs, they go out, and then as you get closer to the bottom, they start drooping down. You know that, right? That's how trees are. The top points up, close to the top, they kind of point out, and then the bottom, they aim down. And they're all different shapes and all different sizes. Nice homes for the birds and the bees. Nice home. Yeah, so I'm using gray and orange, and not gray, but green and orange and black for the trees here. Just want to do this. I'm looking forward to going to an actual place where these scenes are for real. I mean, I live in a place. I could go to the water today, I guess. I think the big thing for me with this trip to where are we going again? Gatlinburg. I think the big thing for me with going there is the time, because we're just basically going there. There's not a whole lot we've got planned to do except for miniature golf. And I was thinking, well, that's a perfect opportunity to paint more in the outdoors. I don't know if you noticed, but here I paint all these Poppa paintings are early in the morning, because we have so much that we do later on in the day. I mean, Robin's got a whole schedule of stuff she does. And then I have, right now, I have a book assignment. I have to get, how many paintings? 10? I think 10 paintings I have to do to illustrate a book. And, yeah, so we're kind of busy in the day. And it's like, well, when we go to Gatlinburg, we'll be free. We can just do whatever we want. So I'm going to spend some of my time. I know a lot of the others want to go hiking, and I'm limited with hiking. I can go. I should work out and get better at it, but I go. I'm going to say I might be able to go 3 miles and then I'm done. But they're good. They can go like 12 miles. And I was like, gee, 12 miles. I don't think I'm going to be going 12 miles. So while they're walking, I'll be painting. And I'll probably videotape some of it so I can share it with you guys. I love the fact that you share your work with me too, on the Poppa Paints Facebook group. That is, man, I've had a lot of stupid ideas in my life, but that was a good idea to make that group. Because when I started this channel, my whole thinking was we could have like a community of artists that developed through the channel. But then you're stuck with, well, the only art that's showing is mine. Well, that's not what I wanted. I was kind of naive, I guess, about this whole thing. I thought you could post pictures on YouTube, I guess. I thought you could put things on the comments. And I found out you can't. That's why we created the Facebook group. And I love it. You guys are so good at what you do. I've learned so much from you. I honestly feel like I've become a better artist because of what you've shown me. And hopefully I'm reciprocating with some of these paintings that I've done. I think this is a cool concept. Do you know who I want you to look up? If you haven't already, you probably know him. Do you know James Gurney? Well, James Gurney is an amazing artist. There are so many artists that I admire. James Gurney is one of them. He is absolutely astounding. And do you know James Gurney was good friends with Kincaid. What was Kincaid's first name? Gee, was it Robert? The painter of light. Was it Robert Kincaid? But anyway, they were friends. Kincaid died, but James Gurney and Kincaid were friends. I think they worked for some of the studios. I think they worked for Disney. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, James Gurney is outstanding. And he does plein air. You call it plein air. He just calls it painting. And, well, it is plein air, but he's very super good at it. He is an inspiration. And if you watch his videos, you will learn a lot about painting and observing. And every once in a while, he's got a lot of learning tools. He's got a lot of books he's written and videos you can watch. And I think he's got, what is that called when you pay to watch videos? Is it called Patreon or something? He's got something like that, one of those. But yeah, he's definitely worth learning from. I always wonder why somebody that good at what they do isn't a household name. Like, why do we know some names like household names and not others, when some of them are really good? when Rob and I did the radio show, we would often have guests in the studio that were singers, and they would come in the studio and they would have a recording of themselves, or sometimes they'd sing live in the studio, and they, oh my gosh, they would blow me away. They were so good at it, and in my mind, they were as good, if not better, than many of the people who we know, household names. But for one reason or another, they just, years later, they're still, singing in bars or in coffee houses or not at all, All right, now let's get some lines here in the water, just a few of those water lines. There, I don't know what I would call this. But after doing yesterday's, I thought I should do something really simple and really watercolory. So this is watercolory. Now what I want to do is I want to take this just plain water and spread this around a little bit. Maybe even make it a little bit darker here. A little bit richer. Maybe some more definition to some of these trees. Yeah, I often think I'm going to mess something up when I start doing extra things like this, but I want to have a little bit of richness over here. I think half of the fun of creating something from nothing is seeing what happens on it, almost on its own. Sometimes some of these things just happen on their own. All right, let's put some of those tiny little lines. You get a little brush here. Just a little tiny brush. Just drag it across. There we go. And let me balance it a little bit. I feel like it's imbalanced now. A little bit of darkness over here. Okay, try to match what I did on the right side a little bit. Use a bigger brush. Slightly bigger brush. Maybe a little bit of darkness here. Yeah, maybe there's a couple over here. Ba-ding! My phone is talking to me. Alright, I guess that's good. There's a couple of those over there. There we go. Alright, the only thing I want to do now is smear the water on the back of the card. Just to soften up some of those places that I used the back of the card as a palette. I didn't do too much this time. And then we'll let it dry and fold it, and we will call it a card. I don't know what I'm going to title it, but there we go. Alright, let me let it dry and I'll be right back. Okay. It's dry. Let me fold it. And we'll call it a card. Very similar to yesterday's card. Let's see. So that's yesterday's card. Whoops. That's yesterday's card. Whoops. Come on. That's yesterday's. That's today's. So this one clearly has a little bit more of that orange-ish to it, and it's almost impossible to tell that I used green in the trees a little bit, whereas in this one I didn't use any green, just orange and black. And this one is orange, black, and green. And of course the white from the card. The white from the card itself. I think what I like about this is the whole watercolory look. I like that look of watercolor. All right. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.